Do you know there are some times that you get an opportunity, Shamayim sends you this unbelievable wake-up call at the most perfect and most apropos of times. The timing is phenomenal, right? Where Borei Olam not only sends us what we need, but He sends it to us at the time that we need it most. I'm hoping that what you're about to hear tonight is going to be that riveting wake-up call, be'ita u'bizmana. Isn't that what the pasuk says? Borei Olam, somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim, v'zokev l'chol hakefufim. Ein echol elecha yisaberu, ve'ata noten lahem et ochlam be'ito. It's not just the ochel that He delivers be'ito, but anyone that needs somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim, anyone that's falling, Hashem will not let you fall. V'hichzakta bo, He's going to catch you before you fall. Hashem is the somech Hashem l'chol hanoflim. Hashem's the one who catches the person before he falls. As he's falling down, Borei Olam catches him, pulls him back up on his feet. Zokef l'chol hakefufim. He straightens out those who are bent over, those who are on the way down. Ein echol elecha yisaberu. Abba, we're turning our eyes to you tonight. Ein echol elecha yisaberu. Ve'ata notenet ochlam be'ito. That ochlam is not just food. That ochlam represents the Yeshua. Whatever the Yeshua means to me, to you, and to the next guy, whatever Yeshua you're waiting for, He delivers it. Doesn't let you fall. And when does He send it to you? Be'ito. At the right time. At the most perfect of all time. That's when Borei Olam sends it. Unbelievable. I'm hoping that tonight will be the Yeshua of a wake-up call, be'ito. Mamash, at the time we need it. Today in the morning, when we were learning Bet HaLevi Be'ayun, together with our chabur of guys, in the morning kollel that's here till 10:30, 11 o'clock every day learning. At first, I really thought that tonight's shiur was going to be on an incredible pasuk in this week's parasha, and I even highlighted today to the guys that I'm thinking that tonight's shiur is going to be on this great pasuk, the pasuk that Yosef HaTzadik tells his brothers, Atem chashavtem alai l'ra'ah. You, when you sold me down to Egypt, your intentions weren't good. But Elokim, Hashem, chashava alai l'tova. Hashem had my best in mind. So in truth, everything you did, it was really with Hashem's plan, not your plan. And although your plan might have been with a bad intention, but Hashem's plan was with the best intentions. Look, brought me down to Egypt. Brought you down to Egypt. To be able to save the world with ochel at the time of the famine, to bring Klal Yisrael down with Yaakov Avinu, to start already the foundations for She'abud Yitziat Mitzrayim and for the final Yitziat Mitzrayim. Last week we spoke about how Yosef HaTzadik was able to set up all the galuyot. It was this past Monday night. He was able to set up all the galuyot. He was able to set up all the geulot. No, this was an incredible plan. So tonight I was going to speak about this topic. We're going to talk about this great idea about, even though Hashem at the end was running the show all along, and Hashem's plan was for the best, but Lamaisa, the brothers did have bad intentions. Isn't that already something to answer for, to ask mechila for, even if it turned out to be for the best? But Lamaisa, you had in your mind to kill the guy. Doesn't that need a kapara? A mechila? Be'ezrat Hashem, tune in this coming Monday night. I would like to talk about this topic, which was supposed to be tonight's topic. And then suddenly I got hit with a lightning bolt. And it changed tonight's topic completely. It's like I didn't know what hit me. I was on the phone today with my Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael, Rebbe Shalom Rabinovich, Shalita, Admei Vesrim. And he told me over Reb Shimshon Astropoli, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha, on the pasuk in this week's parasha, that blew my mind. And I have to share this with you. I have to literally push off the class that we wanted to give for Monday to tell you this tonight. But Teda Lecha, this is a Yeshua Be'ito. This is a Somech Hashem L'chol HaNoflim. This is a Somech Hashem to all those in our circles in the United States of America who are falling. This is the Zokef L'chol HaKifufim. This is Abba Enei Chol Elecha Yisaberu. I'm turning to you now. We're turning our eyes up to you. Va'ata notenet ochlam bito. Give me the words to be able to put out this Yeshua lefanenu be'ito. At the perfect time. Get ready for this. Listen to these words. Says the great Reb Shimshon Astropoli, Rabotai, put on the seatbelts. He says there are 12 months in the year. Each month of the 12 months of the year, each month is Keneged another Shevet of Klal Yisrael. 12 months, 12 Shvatim. Each month corresponds to another tribe of Israel. Says Rosh Hashanah Astropoli, I want to tell you that in this week's Parashan Vayichi, there's a remez that rewrites the books. Listen to the Yeshua that's coming at us now. Listen to these words. Says Yaakov Avinu to Yosef, right before Revi'i, Va'ani natati lecha Shechem achad al achecha. Pashut Pshat, Yaakov Avinu is giving a gift to Yosef. I'm giving you, Yosef, something special. Above all your brothers. Achad al achecha. One up. I'm giving you one up over your brothers. Asher lakachti miyad ha'emori bekharbi ubekashti. Says the Siftei Chachamim, bekharbi ubekashti, bechochma ubetfila. Becharbi, chochma, ubekashti, milakshon bakasha, tefila. Unbelievable. Says Rosh Hashanah Astropoli, Rabotai, open your hearts, you're about to hear something incredible. Says the great Reb Shimshon that there are 2 months out of this year, the 2 months of the year that are the greatest et ratzon for Klal Yisrael. And those 2 months are obviously Elul and Tishrei. These are the 2 months that have such an et ratzon in front of Hashem that a Jew can be po'el in those 2 months and literally set up the entire year. Elul, et ratzon, Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Rabbah, Sukkot. What he can do in these 2 months, he literally sets the path, the Gzar Din, for every waking moment of the coming year. So the 2 greatest months of Et Ratzon, that you can literally set everything in its path, Elul and Tishrei. Says Rosh Hashanah Astropoli, but I want you to know, there is one more period during the year that's as great as Elul and Tishrei. And you know what that period is? That's the period of Shobhabim. These 6 weeks that are starting this coming Motza'ei Shabbat, these coming 6 weeks that are starting Shemot, Va'era, Bo, Bishalach, Yitro, Mishpatim, Shobhabim, Rashi Tevot, the parashiyot of those coming 6 weeks, starting this coming Motzei Shabbat, starting this coming Saturday night, Sunday, the great period of Shovavim. It's a period of unbelievable tikkun, unbelievable teshuvah. You know for what? For the American Averot. The American Averot. All the Averot of Arayot and Niyuf, all Zera Lebatala, everything that needs real tikkun. The Shobhabim is a special time to work on the Kiddusha of a Jew, to work on the Kiddusha of Klal Yisrael, to get special kapara for all the Averot that one needs real tikkun for. That's this period now, Shobhabim. Says Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli, this time is such a great et ratzon, that it's an et ratzon that's able to save the person. What he didn't do in Elul and Tishrei, he can do in Shobhabim. That's Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli. And he says, and I want to tell you now a secret that's found in this very pasuk. This pasuk that Yaakov gives Shechem to Yosef. Listen to this unbelievable pshat. Listen to what he says. Says Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli, yes, Elul, Tishrei, unbelievable et ratzon. Shobhabim, again, great et ratzon. But says Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli, but in the year that you have a leap year, in the year that you have Tu Adar, that year, the Shobhabim period is just as great as Elul and Tishrei, if not bigger. Specifically in a leap year, the Shobhabim is as great as Elul and Tishrei. It's Elul and Tishrei take two. And what you did not accomplish, or maybe did not take advantage of in Elul and Tishrei, you can accomplish right now, in these coming weeks called Shobhabim. You know, sometimes a guy comes out of the summer. He's coming out of August, July. In the summer we get gassed in the head. Maybe because of the weather, maybe because of what's going on in the streets, maybe what's not going on in the streets that's throwing us off. But at the end of the day, we come out of a summer, specifically this past summer, when Elul started so early in the middle of the summer, where people were in vacation mode. Their brains were out to lunch. Elul was a very light Elul. Everybody woke up Labor Day, which was Erev Rosh Hashanah. But that's a little bit late. So in a year like this year, we need to hear this Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli, because many of us did not take advantage of Elul and Tishrei this past year. So says Rav Shimshon, I want to tell you something. You can make it up specifically this year, because this year is a leap year. And in a leap year of Tu Adar, the period of Shobhabim is just as great as Elul and Tishrei when it comes to Et Ratzon. And if you didn't take advantage of Elul Tishrei, now in Shobhabim, you can take advantage and accomplish on a great Et Ratzon, maybe even more than Elul and Tishrei. Now's the makeup. Now's when you can do it. He says, you know where I get this from? I get it from the pasuk itself. Are you ready for this? This is wild what I'm about to tell you now. He says, take a look at the pasuk. Va'ani natati lecha Shechem achad alachecha. Says Yaakov Avinu to Yosef, I'm giving you Shechem, one up over your brothers. Asher lakachti miyad ha'emori becharbi ubikashti. Listen to this. Says Rav Shimshon Ashpropoli. Va'ani is gematria Elul. Natati lecha is gematria Tishrei. Shechem is gematria Shovavim. Before the class, I sat down with a pen and paper and I worked out every single one of these three words. and he is right on the mark. Not even with the kolel. No, he's right bull on the mark. Va'ani is exactly gematria Elul. Natati exactly gematria Tishrei. Natati lecha is Tishrei. Shechem is exactly Shovavim. Makes sense. Shovavim. Shechem. The Shin and the Shin. The Mem and the Mem. And what do you have in the middle? The Vav, the Bet, and the Yud, which is 20, which is the Chaf of Shechem, right? It works out perfect. I got to say this again. Va'ani gematria Elul. Natati lecha gematria Tishrei. Shechem gematria Shovabim. Said Yaakov Avinu to Yosef. Says Borei Olam to Klal Yisrael. I am giving you Elul. Natati lecha, I'm giving you Tishrei. The two greatest times of Et Ratzon. But you know what else I'm giving you as the greatest Et Ratzon? Shechem gematria Shobhabim. When? Achad al achecha. When you have one more than the typical number of your brothers. Your brothers are 12. But in the year that you have one more than 12 months, that's the year that Shobhavim is even as great as Elul and Tishrei. And what you didn't get done in Elul and Tishrei, you can get done in Shechem, in Shobhabim. Because this is the year that's Achad al Achecha. This is the year that has 1 over the number of the tribes, 1 over 12, where typically 12 months in the year, Keneged Achecha, the 12 tribes of Israel, but in the year that it's Achad al Achecha, where there's 1 more than the typical number of 12, a year of 13 months, a leap year, in that year, Ani natati lecha Shechem. I gave you Shobhabim that's just as great as Ani, Gematria Elul, Natati Lecha, Gematria Tishrei. And what you didn't do in Elul and Tishrei, you can do in Shobhabim in the year that's Achad Alachecha, a 13-month year. Wow, when I heard this today on the phone, I was dancing. I said, Rebbe, where did you pull this rabbit out of your sleeve? He said, it wasn't me, it was Shimshon from the great Talmidim of the Ari, the Balamofet, the great Shimshon, the one that negotiated a great deal with the Baldovar in the years of Tach V'Tat to stop the massacres, until finally the life of the Shach had to be taken after he finished the writing of Shach. The Shach on Shulchan Aruch, unbelievable. This is the Pshat of Rav Shimshon Astropoli. And Rav Shimshon is talking to me and you. And as I looked at the end of the Pasuk, I said to myself, but 1 second, the Pasuk keep going. Asher lekachti, Yaakov Avinu says, Miyad ha'emori, says Rashi, you know who this is? Esav. I fought for this. Yaakov Avinu says, I fought for this. Klal Yisrael, I fought for you. I fought for you to give you another Et Ratzon. I fought for this. Miyad ha'emori, I had to steal this away from the Sitra Achra. I had to steal this away from the Sar Esav. Yaakov Avinu fought with the Sar Esav. I had to fight for this. Becharbi ubikashti. I had to go to war to get you this. I had to mamash go to war. I had to fight for you in order to get this for you. Don't think this was easy. I had to fight to get you another Elul and Tishrei in middle of the year. If you missed out on round 1, you have another shot, another Et Ratzon that's just as great as Elul and Tishrei in a year that you have 1 over the number of your brothers, a 13-month year. The Charbi, I had to do it with wisdom. Bikashti, with tefillot, I had to literally go and fight and get this so that Klal Yisrael can have another chance. This Sunday starts Shobhabim. This Sunday at 3:30, I believe it is. You can go to Borough Park. You can go to Rabbi Goldring on 12th Avenue, Rabbi Aaron Goldring Shlita. He has a Shobhabim Tikkun. I used to go there for many years. It's a big tzaddik. Or you can come right here to Bnei Yosef on Ocean Parkway and Avenue P. And you have a big tzaddik that does over there as well, Rabbi Milstein Shalita, who does over there the Shobhabim. I believe it's 3:30. And that's where I'm going to be going to this year. We'll bump into each other. And we'll fight, b'charbi u'b'kashti, for another chance, for a tikkun. Like Rabbi Milstein told me. He said a Jew that goes to the Tikkun Harashash on Shobhabim, it cleans away the entire past. Not bad. Makabel Ta'anit the day before, or if it's hard for you to fast, you come in and you make the pidyon, you give a few dollars, and you podeh the Ta'anit. They do it over there, b'makom. And then you come into the shul, and they say a certain amount of selichot, and then they say Sefer Torah mincha, like a Ta'anit mincha, with Kriyat Sefer Torah. And then they go and do the Amidah, and when you get up to Shema Kolenu, they pull out the special books. It's the books of the Tikkun of the Rashash. And in Shema Kolenu, they do the entire Tikkun Shobhabim. Someone once told me that a great tzaddik in Eretz Yisrael said that when Rabbi Milstein does the Shobhabim in America, they feel the ripples, the reverberations in Israel. Do you know what it means to have another chance on a tikkun that can clean the entire past? Right here in our parasha this week, Parashat Vayichi, you think that it was placed, the remez to Shovavim and the Et Ratzon of Elul Tishrei Take 2 in Parashat Vayichi random? Don't you understand that this is the Azhara? Don't you get it that this is the siren, the alarm clock that goes off in the week before Parashat Vayichi to get you ready? It's screaming, Parashat Shemot is coming. It's a few days away. Wake up. I fought for this. B'charbi u'b'kashti. Don't lose out this opportunity. It's right now. If I would have came to you 2 weeks ago, you would have got all worked up. But then the time 2 weeks later came, you might have cooled down. No. So literally the parasha before Shemot, Torah gives you this unbelievable remez to the wake-up call of Shobhabim. And it's given to you right before Shemot. This Sunday is when it begins. It goes on for 6 weeks. Rabbi Milstein is there in Bnei Yosef every Sunday. The entire Shobhabim. Different weeks he does different tikkunim. Certain tikkunim he does for Parnassah in certain weeks. Certain tikkunim he does for other things that need tikkun. Over the span of these 6 weeks, they cover unbelievable tikkunim. A person is able to be metaken the neshama. He's able to come out like Elul, like Tishrei, clean as a whistle. What an opportunity. And it starts this coming Sunday. We have this unbelievable opportunity. Not everybody is up to fasting. It's not easy. My Rebbe told me that the tzaddikim of the last 200 years, because they saw that the generation became very weak, and not like the old generations where the people were built much stronger on the inside. So today they hold that it's not good to fast. We're not up to it. We're not holding by it. So they always bring up the famous shita of the Ra'avad, the Ravid. The Ra'avad has said an amazing chidush that today, in the generations that became weak, us, when a person sits down during Shovavim to a meal, he's hungry, he starts to eat, he starts to indulge. if he stops himself in the middle of the meal and waits and holds and doesn't finish the entire plate but leaves over a little bit. The Ravad says that the discipline that he held himself back from indulging completely and eating a little less and holding out with discipline, that today in our generations is literally similar to someone who fasted. And the Ravad says he gets credit for a ta'anit. It's Ravad. And on the weak generations of us, we need these little sigulot, because we're not up to the people that were like the old generations. If I would tell you how many times my grandmother fasted, to them it was. In Elul they fasted all week. Today generations, you go and tell that to somebody, they look at you like you fell over. What are you talking about? Fasted? I can barely fast. This past Asara B'Tevet, he tells you, when the fast was over at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You know how many days you guys went through that you missed breakfast because you were running, lunch you never got around to, the time you finally woke up it was already 5, and it didn't hurt you an iota. You weren't even thinking about it. All of a sudden, you know it's a fast. Oh, I can't wait till it's over. Rabbi, the fast is over, 4:50. Good luck with that. It's unbelievable. We're not up to fasting. We're not holding by it. We're not that generation. We became a weak generation. Maybe physically, maybe spiritually, but we're a weak generation. So the rabbis tell us, don't forget the Ravad. In Shovavim, on those 6 weeks, if you could eat a little less, indulge a little less, be a little bit more pure, a little bit more careful with your eyes, not to look at what you shouldn't look at in these weeks. Better have a ta'anit with your eyes than have a ta'anit with your mouth. That's the biggest ta'anit in this generation. A ta'anit with the eyes. Lessen what you shouldn't be looking at. That's a real ta'anit these days. Ta'anit dibur these days. To be so careful not to say what you shouldn't say. To be so careful not to talk chas v'shalom lashon hara in these weeks of Shobhabim. The Ramak, Rav Moshe Cordovero, in his work Tomed Devorah, he speaks about how many tikkunim a Jew can accomplish with the kavanah of Kriyat Shema. Oh, does he talk about this? And these weeks of Shobhabim, when a person is careful with Kriyat Shema, the Zman of Kriyat Shema, the earlier you say it, the better. Because it's a Zrizim Makdimin, it shows that it means something to you. It's important to you. And to be able to say the Kriyat Shema with real kavanah. Shema Yisrael. Hear and understand Klal Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is the name of mercy. Elokeinu is judgment. Really? How do those two work together? That's fire and ice. Mercy and judgment? Hashem? Elokeinu? Mercy? Judgment? No, my friend, make no mistake. Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, mercy, Echad. He's all mercy. Even his judgment is really mercy. Just, you need time to figure that out. Even his judgment has an underpinning, an underlaying veil of mercy. Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei Ahad. That's him entirely. That's the only part of him. Aleph, Ein Od Milvado. What do we think when we say Ahad, guys? Aleph, Ein Od Milvado, we think. The letter Aleph, what does it full power to? Aleph is made up. And Aleph, the letter Aleph, is made up with a Vav and 2 Yuds. That's why it's 26, right? You know what the Vav and the 2 Yuds stand for? Yahareg ve'al ya'avor. We think about that. I'm ready to die al yedeh Kiddush Hashem. Just like Rabbi Akiva, sheyatza nishmato be'ahad. Chet, Zayin Rikiot, 1 Aretz that you created. Dalid ruchot ha'olam, Hashem, you are everywhere. You're sholet on the entire world, all four corners of the earth. You makabel on yourself ol malchut shamayim at that point. You makabel on yourself Hashem's hashgacha at that point. These are the kavanot of Kriyat Shema. Do this in Shobhabim slowly. Don't rip it. This is a deoraita. Baruch. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Baruch, Shem Kevon Malchuto, is ma'akiv if you don't have kavanah by Baruch Shem Kevon Malchuto. And if you didn't, you have to do it again, he writes. Mishnah Berurah, look it up. Hafetz Chaim. Baruch Shem Kevod is also the kavanah's ma'akev, the mitzvah. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the kingdom, Shem Kevod Malchuto, the kingdom of God, forever and ever. We think about this. Says the Ramak, when a person reads Kriyat Shema slowly, and he counts the words like he's counting Lahavdil Elef Havei Avdalot, as if he's counting money, with real focus, with real intent. And he reads the word slowly. And he makes sure that one word doesn't cut off the next word. And he reads inside a Siddur, not Baal Peh. And he gives real kavanah. He says that Kriyat Shema could literally bring such tikkun to a person that it's mevatel gezerot kashot. Did you hear that? One Kriyat Shema that you put effort into, that you put kavanah into. Specifically in the days of Shobhabim, which are made for the tikkunim that break all the gezerot on people. Here you have the opportunity. Be nizhar in Kriyat Shema in these weeks of Shobhabim. And the rabbis talk specifically about being so careful in these 6 weeks in the respect and the honor of another Jew. Ben Adam lechavero in these 6 weeks is something very, very delicate. Unbelievable tikkunim can be done in these 6 weeks, where you let things go, where you don't get angry at people, where you let things go with people, where you are slow to anger and you are easy to turn a cheek, and you're mevater, and you give compliments to your wife, and you give compliments to your children, and you're a little bit easier going with people. These 6 weeks are the time of incredible tikkunim ben adam lechavero. And if a person messed up over the years in his life, and he hurt people, these are the 6 weeks to fix it. Chazal tell you in the 6 weeks of Shobhabim, you can fix all the mess-ups of ben adam lechavero. Watch your words in these 6 weeks. No lashon hara. Tani dibur they make in Shobhabim, in order to fix all the rechilut, all the sheker, all the lashon hara, all the motzi shemra that came out of a person's mouth, can be fixed in these 6 weeks. What an opportunity! Specifically this year, these 6 weeks are at the height of its strength of tikkun, because this is a leap year. We just saw it in the pasuk. Achad al achecha. This is that year, says Reb Shimshon Astropoli. We don't know how makbid Borei Olam is when it comes to the feelings of people. My Rebbe told me over today a story about a girl who went to Bet Yaakov in Israel. And the girl was not from the easiest girls. She had certain personality flaws that made it difficult to get along with her sociably. And because of that, in school, she had a hard time. She had a very hard time. Because the girls that were around her really didn't want to have much to do with her. She had a very rough way of talking. She had a very rough way about her, although she didn't mean it. But she had certain personality flaws that kept people distanced from her. To the extent that it just wasn't working out in that school. To the extent that the school started giving hints to the parents, it would be a good idea to take her out. And she wanted to leave because she wasn't getting along with anybody anyways. So the parents finally, they gave in. They took their daughter out middle of the year and they brought her to a different school in Jerusalem, hoping that in this school things would get better. It turns out that when she came to the new school, some of the girls in the class heard what went on in the other school. So they knew already that this girl's coming in with baggage. They knew that this girl's coming in because she couldn't get along with the girls of the other school. Social difficulties. Her social circles, very hard for her to kind of fit in. Now the girls in the new school, they said, if she tries to pull that here, we're not going to stand for it. We're going to put her in her place. We're going to teach her. We're going to teach her a lesson. So when she came to the new school, this girl, thinking she's going to get a new start, thinking she's going to turn over a new leaf, and instead, she walked into a battlefield. They ambushed her. They were waiting for her. They literally were waiting to set her straight. They didn't even give her a chance. The first thing she did out of line, whoa, tipol aleha emata v'fahad. They jumped on her. They put her in a place. They put her down. It's terrible. She was so taken by the reaction. Such a strong pushback from a new class. It was as if they knew everything about her. She says, what's going on? Little did she know that they did their homework, hearing already why this girl is coming to the school in the middle of the year. No, we're not going to stand for that here. They told each other, we're going to set her, we're going to put her in her place. We're going to show her that doesn't work here. And they thought they were doing l'shem shamayim. If someone doesn't teach her now, she'll never learn. We're going to straighten her out. Time she leaves here, she's not going to have this anymore. And boy, did they rip into her. And boy, did they pull blood out of her. To the extent that the girl couldn't last more than a few months. She left the new school, believe it or not, went back to the old school. That's how terrible the new place was. In that group in the new school was 6 girls that were the ones that really took it upon themselves to be mechanechet, this girl that came in, the new girl. We fast forward the story now, another 10 years later. These 6 girls all get married. First year of marriage, no children. Second year of marriage, no children. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year of marriage, no children. All the doctors in the world, no children. These 6 friends, all in the same predicament, get together one night and they're racking their brains. They did every sigula, they went to every doctor, they went to every gadol, every mikubal, and nothing. Finally, one looks at the other and says, we were together since 7th, 8th grade. You remember when we were kids, there was a girl that came over to our school for a month or 2. And we took upon ourselves to straighten her out. We knew why she was coming over. And boy, did we straighten her out, to the extent that she left. You think we were too hard on her? You think maybe all of this is happening to us 6 specifically because maybe we were too hard on her? They look at each other. Listen, we tried everything else. And from everybody in the class, us 6 are the only ones who have no children. They decided they're going to track the girl down. They started making phone calls back and forth, and friends and schools and kids, remembering back 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, till finally they tracked down the girl. And you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. They tracked down the girl, and the girl also had no children. Also married for about 5, 6 years. She too had no kids. Yeah, unbelievable. Not only the 6, not only the antagonizers, but Ki'ilu, the victim, who antagonized others. That's why she had to leave the first school. But now coming to the second school, she became the victim, and these 6 antagonized her. This group of 7, 6 plus 1, married for 5, 6 years, nobody has children. They reach out to her and they say, listen, Anoichi imcha b'tzara. You have no children, you're married so many years. So to us. Let's call a spade a spade. When you came to our school, we might have put you through a hard time. Forgive us. Forgive us. That's right, this week's parasha, Rabotai, is the parasha that you find out how big the Mechila is. You know that. You know that. Right after Yaakov Avinu died, the brothers came to Yosef and said to Yosef, our fathers told us, which actually he didn't, they made it up just to put pressure on him, but our father told us, after he dies, we should ask Mechila from you, Yosef. If you take a good look in the Pasuk, says Rabbeinu Bach here, Yosef said, what? Hashem sent me down here, not you. Hashem sold me to Egypt, sent me to Egypt when you sold me, not you. Yosef said everything. No, it's nothing, it's God, it's this, it's that. But he never said, I am mochel you. Rabbeinu Bachya. And he says, because he never said those words. It's a famous story of Moshe Feinstein. Because he never said those words, the brothers never got a mechila. And because of that, there was a asara harugei malchut. The 10 greatest rabbis, years later, were murdered because of the 10 brothers who never got the word, I am mochel you. So these 6 girls come and they say, be mochel us. Please be mochel us. And she says, no way. No way. Do you know what you put me through? Do you know that there wasn't a night that I didn't go to bed crying and screaming on those few months that I was by you in that new school? Do you know what type of pint of blood you took out of me? The way you harassed me day after day on the smallest things that I did, that I couldn't even help myself at the time. I was an immature girl. No way. I will never be mochel you. Ooh, ah. They realize now they hit on something. They realize they found something here. They hit on something. They called her back a few days later. They said, listen, we have no kids. You have no kids. We got to do something. You don't want to be mochel, don't be mochel. But we need to do something. We have an idea. We want to throw you a lunch. We're all going to get together. If you want, we'll come to your house. You can come to our house. But let's at least bring a little yididut, a little something beinenu. Maybe it'll help us. You don't want to be mochel, don't be mochel. But at least, let's at least clear the air. Let's clear the air. Please. We're coming over. They didn't give her a choice. We're coming over to your house. We're bringing food. We're having a beautiful meal with you tomorrow for lunch. She said, okay. The next day, all 6 of them came over to this girl's house. Each one comes in. Each one made all types of food. Each one comes in with all types of food. They put out a spread, kederech hamelech. And not only that, each one bought this girl a present. And at the lunch, as they're eating, she sees, wow, look at the way they put themselves out. Each one cooked and baked and cooked and baked. Each one brought tremendous amount of food. But then it came the moment where they were giving the presents. Each one pulled out a present from under the table and gave it to the guest of honor, the host, the girl, the victim. And each one gave her another present, and she was to tears. Wow, you did this for me. You went out and bought these presents for me. Each one was a beautiful present. She says, okay, enough. She gives a scream in the middle of the lunch. I am mochel all of you. Machul, I'm mochel all of you. I'm mochel belev shalem, all of you. I can't believe you did this for me. Says my Rebbe, Reb Meir Shalom Rabinovich, that year, all 7 girls had children. Do you hear this? Not 5 out of 7. Not 3 out of 7. Not 6 out of 7. 7 out of 7 had children. All 7. Because Shamayim is makbid on ben adam lechavero. Or if I can use the words of the great Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, ben adam lechavero is fire, and fire burns. Right? You play with matches. You could be right, you could be wrong, it doesn't matter. When you play around with fire, it burns. Regardless if you're right or if you're wrong. It burns. It burns everybody. These 6 weeks are tremendous tikkunim for ben adam lechavero. If you ever hurt someone, if you ever had a sichsuch with someone, if someone has a kpeda on you, if someone has issues with you, if you have issues on someone else, these are the days we're mevater. These are the days that we do tremendous tikkunim. We're so careful. No lashon hara these 6 weeks. No rechilut. Shmirat HaLashon, get in on the halachot. We just started a new series, Shmirat HaLashon. It's everywhere, it's on all the websites. It's on iTorah, it's on Torah Anytime, it's on YouTube, everywhere it's there. Shmirat HaLashon. We started from the beginning. People say, no, Rabbi, we don't want audio, we want video. Why? So that you can see what tie I'm wearing? Fine, so we did it on video. So we started over the whole series after doing the audio series for 3 years, 7 times. You know that? The audio series, we went around the entire book of Shmirat HaLashon, of Chafetz Chaim. We went around 7 times. Now we started a new series, Chadash, fresh. Not the old stuff, recycled. No, literally fresh. New style, with mashal, with little quips, little this, little that, little sayings. Remember, more reminders. Shmirat HaLashon, in video, Blu-ray. I'm joking. We're up to already, I believe it's the 27th, the 28th day. But that's where the tikkun is. When it comes to these great weeks of Shobhabim, specifically in this year, in the year of a leap year, Achad al Achecha, it has the strength of an Elul, of a Tishrei. We need it this year because we messed up on Elul. It was middle of the summer. We woke up too late. We woke up on Yom Adin. We walked in September. We said, we know what hit us. It's already Yom Adin. What happened to the Elul? We had no time to prepare. We walked into the courtroom with no documents, no prep. Now's the time to fix it. You wouldn't believe how serious ben adam lechavero is. You wouldn't believe how many times people suffer for things they did when they hurt other people. You think they got away with it. There's no such thing as getting away with anything in this world. Yesh din v'yesh dayan. Nobody gets away with anything. You might not see the justice. You might not see the give and take of people in their situations, but know that there's a great judge in this world that runs it al pi emet. Al pi emet. And we need these tikkunim if we ever hurt anybody. And if anyone has ever hurt you, don't think they got away scot-free. There's no such thing. I want to tell you a crazy story that happened to me. I grew up in a very, very powerful yeshiva. I went to a place called Yeshivat Tiferet Elimelech. Tiferes Elimelech in Borough Park, when I was a young boy, I was not the first, but the second graduating class of this yeshiva when they first started. Tiferes Elimelech. Great yeshiva. I mean, everything was in Yiddish, so I guess it gave me a new language. But at the end of the day, when I came out of that yeshiva, I was ready for Mir Yeshiva for high school. There was a kid in that yeshiva, in that my class, who was from Bensonhurst. This kid must have been ADD, ADHD, any A and any D that you have, he was. He was. If he walked around with a business card, the numbers and the statuses and the what's it called on it would have went around to the back of the card. Any type. This kid was off the walls, and not just off the walls. Not only did he bounce off the walls, this kid, he couldn't sit in one place for 2 minutes, but he had a certain streak about him that he loved to pick on kids. If you put that combo together, a bully that loves to see other kids cry, with all that energy, it's the Energizer Bunny from Gehenna. You know what I mean? It was a real experience to have to be in the same class with this kid. And specifically me, I was the only Sfaradi boy in the class. That already made me the black sheep. This kid was after me. He drove me nuts. Mama, I'm telling you, mamash. It was daily fights. I went to the principal. How much can they do already? How much can they do? This kid from Bensonhurst. For years, he put me through. I don't want to tell you. I didn't realize at the time it was the best thing for me. I was a very sweet, soft-hearted kid. I cried very quickly as a child. And I guess that Hashem wanted me to toughen up a little bit as I was a child growing up. Years later, you're going to be a rabbi of a kehillah. You're living between the crossfire. That's what the job of a rabbi is. If I'd start crying on every time someone threw a rock at me, I'd probably be on a plane to Israel. See, what can I tell you? So maybe that was the pshat. That's what I tell myself. That was the pshat. But listen to what happened. For years I suffered with this kid. For years. For years. One day, a good 20 some odd years later, I come back from Eretz Yisrael after being in yeshiva there in Itri for 3.5 years as Bachur. And a good friend of mine was in Maimonides Hospital, and he had a certain condition, and I went to visit him. I came back from Israel. I heard a good friend of mine's in the hospital. He's actually also a family member. So I went to visit him, Bikur Cholim. I come into the hospital, and I walk up, and I see there's a long line waiting by the desk that they tell you what floor, what people, what this, what that. Now, as good as more visiting hours. And I remembered that my mother told me it was this and this floor, the 10th floor, the 8th floor, I don't know, whatever it was. But she told me the number. So I remembered that number. So I said, what am I going to sit there? Handle with the guy to tell me the floor. I know what floor it's on. I remember she told me what room it was. So I just walked straight up to the elevators. And I'm waiting for the elevator. I jump on the elevator. And I go up to the floor. I walk out of the elevator on the floor. I start walking around. I said, something's wrong here. I saw that literally people were walking around in these hospital-like gowns, and they just didn't look normal. And they were pacing back and forth. Many of them were talking to themselves. Many of them were in all different types of surges or all different types of conniptions and screaming and yelling and fighting with imaginary people. I mean, what floor did I get out on? So I turn around to ask the nurse, what floor am I on? And she tells me, you're in the mental. I said, how in the world did I end up on this floor? It was a bad mistake. I said, oh, okay. I turn around. I was going to run to the elevator, but I didn't, because I didn't want to stir up a frenzy. So I started very calmly walking to the elevator. And just then a voice right behind me says, Dovi, you don't say hello? Slowly I turn, inch by inch. Who is that? Who's on the floor? The mental floor? Who? I turned around, and there he was. The kid from Bensonhurst. In a gown. And I saw from his eyes he must have been on something. I don't know. And I looked at the guy, and I was marachim. I said, "Oy." And Hashem showed me, don't think you know what's going on in this world. You know nothing. You don't know what's going on. Chas v'shalom, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I don't mean chas v'shalom punished or not. That's not what I mean. You don't know what's going on by the other guy. That's what I mean to say. Not in the way of punishment, in the way of we don't know nothing. We don't know what's going on by Yenim. Don't think that anyone got away or has it easy or whatever. You don't know what's going on by the other guy. What Hashem did, He did. Remember, I tell you this, guys, all the time. Nobody can do anything to you in this world. No one can give you anything. No one can take away from you anything. But he has freedom of choice. We've said this many times, yeah. The guy holding the gun, he has a choice whether to pull the trigger. But if the bullet that comes out is going to hit you or not, that's in Hashem's hands. That's only in Hashem's hands. So he can try to do whatever he wants to you. But the punch is not going to land unless Hashem allows it. But when He makes the choice, when people hurt people in this world, we got to be so careful. Got to be so careful with the feelings of other people, with the hurting of other people. You got to be so careful. These weeks are mitaken, these unbelievable things. So Rabotai, let me just end off this class and tell you. I thought to myself today, the Torah could have given you the remez, the Shobhabim secret of Reb Shimshon Astropoli. They could have given it to you anywhere in the Torah. Why is it mirumaz dafka by the parsha of Yaakov and Yosef HaTzadik? Why here from all places? I could have told you this anywhere in this parasha. Why in this pasuk? Yaakov is giving Yosef something special. Here, from all places, we're talking about Shobhabim. And I believe the answer is a tremendous answer. Number one, Yosef is the right one to bring about the concept of Shobhabim. He was the one that stood up to the greatest test of Eshet Potiphar. He is the one that stands for the ability to be mitaken these type of sins and destroy the sitra ahara, the Esav, the Yetzer hara. Yosef is keneged Esav. Says Yaakov Avinu, I stole this from Emori. Says Rashi, who's the Emori? Zu Esav. You want to beat Esav? You want to beat the Yetzer hara? You need to be Yosef HaTzadik. How do you do it? In these 6 weeks. That's the first reason why it fell in this pasuk. And I have another reason why. You might not know this. Yosef HaTzadik was away from his father for 22 years. Could you imagine missing your father for 22 years? You know how many times Yosef asked his brothers about his father? Is my father okay? Is my father alive? You know how close they were? Do you know that Yosef was his father's everything? And his father was to Yosef everything as well. Do you kno shel aviv? Finally, his father comes down to Egypt after not seeing him separated in the worst of ways for 22 years. What would you expect Yosef HaTzadik to do now? Daddy's in town. What would you expect him to do now? Reunite, right? I bet you're going to spend the most time with your father to make up for all those years. Says Chazal, In the beginning of this week's parasha, Yosef did the exact opposite. The father that he loved, the father that he longed for, he avoided him. And he stayed far away from Yaakov Avinu, to the extent that this parasha says it clear. When it came time, Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamut. Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamut. What did Yaakov do? Vayikra Libno Yosef. He had to call him. What's that? What do you have to call him? What do you have to call him? Wasn't he there by your bedside every single waking moment to make up for the lost 22 years? No, just the opposite. He was less by his father than ever. He avoided his father. He made excuses. I'm busy in the castle. I'm busy with the world. I'm busy with Lishbor Ochel. I'm busy with Paro. I'm busy with Mitzrayim. I'm busy with the Shever. I'm busy. I can't. Why? That the one time he got to speak to me, I had to call him. Why? Chazal tell us, you want to know why? Because Yosef HaTzadik avoided the father that he loved dearly because he was scared. If I spend too much time with my father, the question is going to come up. The subject is going to come up. The subject of him asking me, tell me, Yosef, what really happened to you? How did you get down here to Egypt? Was it your brothers? How did this happen to you? In order not to be put in a position to speak Lashon Hara about his brothers, Yosef avoided his father for years. The father he cried for, the father he loved. And he wouldn't come back to his father because he didn't want to be put into a position to speak on his brothers. Do you understand what we're talking about here? You understand what type of a gadol ben adam l'chavero Yosef HaTzadik was? Anybody else would say, are you joking? You know what they did to you? You have every right. You have every right. You know what they did to you? Rabotai, if I would read you the Midrash that describes to you what took place by Mechirat Yosef, you'd be bawling, crying. You'd be crying. Yosef, he wrapped his arms around the leg of Shimon, and he was screaming, begging, don't do this to me, I'm your brother. And Shimon kicked him off. And then he ran to the next brother and grabbed him, please, you know, this is not right. I'm your brother. Don't sell me to these Arabs. Don't sell me to Mitzrayim. And they pushed him off. He was begging, he was crying, he was pleading, and they showed no mercy. Would you expect that boy, years later, wouldn't have a burning desire for revenge? Okay, so he let the revenge go, because he's a tzaddik. But you avoid your father, who you are finally reunited with, after 22 years of not seeing him. For years, you finally have the opportunity. You can go back to learn with your father again. Yosef HaTzadik, he got all his Torah from his father. Go back, have a chavruta. He avoided him. Why? Because the conversation might come up. And I might have to be put in a position to be asked, no, what really happened? I don't want to ever go there. But what do you mean? They deserve it. Tell him the truth. He should know what they did to you. No. Hashem sent me down here. This has nothing to do with them. This guy can't hurt me. That guy can't hurt me. This guy can't do nothing to me. En od milavado. There are no other kochot in this world except for Avinu Shabbat. That's it. It wasn't him. It wasn't them. It wasn't the neighbor. It wasn't the IRS. It wasn't the accountant. It wasn't the lawyer. It was Hashem. That's it. And therefore, I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara about them. I'm not going to speak about my brothers that way. In spite of every reason why you think I should. Such an unbelievable display of Ben Adam L'Chavero is not shaykh, not human. And therefore, says Yaakov Avinu, you're the one the one that was mitaken all the tikkunim for the most difficult averot, the one that was mitaken ben adam lechavero, you're the one that we're going to bring out the Shobhabim alarm in Parashat Vayechi to get Klal Yisrael ready for this coming Sunday, Parashat Shemot, the beginning of Shobhabim, which in this year, says Reb Shimshon Tripoli, the year of a leap year, that's Achad al Achecha, one above the 12 months, a 13th month year. That's the year that the Shobhabim is another Elul Tishrei opportunity. Use it and use it well. Thank you for listening.